I'm Master Cat, Artemis, and I've been asked to talk about a couple of things that may be issues that we need to face in our community, but a little bit about me, if I can keep it short. I've been basically into kink since the turn of the century. I am one that has survived the AIDS crisis. I was alive during that time, and because of my life circumstances, I managed to avoid getting infected, and so did bury many friends and things like that, and had to be very clandestine about it because of being in the military at the time. This was even before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was really Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Don't Pursue, because they could witch hunt you back then in the 80s and the early 90s before that was signed. If they thought you were gay, they could try to pursue you and catch you, and things like that. So you always had to be very careful what you were doing and hiding your sexuality back then. It's such a different thing now to have people have their same-gender spouse and actually be on the DEERS program. I started getting involved with nudist groups that wanted to play on the side and discovered I like slap and tickle, but it was around 2010 when I finally got divorced and lost 230 pounds of weight, being the ex-wife. Sorry. I'm already going to hell, I don't care. She'll never see this, she won't ever watch this. But it was at that time I started going out and I found this little place called the Annex. And yeah, may it live in our hearts forever, yes. That was the place where people were chill and all that kind of stuff, and I noticed a lot of them wore vests, and I happened to find a leather vest in a consignment shop, and I was like, great, t-shirt, vest, jeans, forgot I needed boots at the time, but I just was very chill, and then finally somebody said, well, let's go to this, and I actually met the pansexual dungeon crowd, and the first time I was there, I was like, who are these people? Because they're doing stuff that I'm like, oh my God, and not only am I horrified, but I'm also turned on. And like, by the end of the day, I was like, this is my tribe. And when they went to the evening thing, it was the fetish ball that night, and all these gentlemen that were wearing t-shirts and shorts and casual during the day, during the classes, were now in formals. And I stood there in what is now, what used to be, I guess, Club 727, and I made a wish that night that says, I want to be like them one day. Yeah, something happened along the way. I looked in the mirror and was like, ooh, I am there. In the time it happened, I ended up getting the title of Mr. Sister Leather in 2017 with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence here in San Antonio, where only 3 of us had ever got the title before they stopped doing the title. So I'm very honored to be on one of 3 of them. And then we resurrected Mr. Alamo City Leather, and I became 2022 and 2023. But somewhere in between, I decided to have a wild hair and become Miss Tough Drag Diva. And I had a drag title for a year. And when I am in drag, I am Miss Martha Spinyard. If anybody gets it, Martha Spinyard? Because this is the real estate there is like $1 million a square inch, so honey, you cannot afford me. So, so being all that, I got vested by the community in 2016 and became Sir Cat Artemis. And then they surprised me in 2021 by putting one of these on my head and calling me Master Cat. And I want to go back to something Miss Anna said about the pyramid being inverted. When we did our book study recently about the roles of elders and masters and sirs and daddies from the traditional gay community, masters are servants of the community. They really are. I spend most of my time talking to people on different mediums, either discussing issues that they want to talk about, planning events, or counseling somebody. I don't know if I can legally call it counseling, but it's sitting down and listening to them and having a chat over a cigar or just having a chat in my backyard over some lemonade because they're going through something at the moment. And that's what I do all day now. It's not pointing at somebody and saying, lick my boots, boy, or anything like that. What you see in the media is not what a true master does. So when you call yourself a master, you have to understand you've willingly become a servant to your community in all ways, shapes, and forms. So I look at it as the mentor of the community. I look at it as the guardian, the protector of the community, the teacher of the community, the lover of the community. And that's what my job is. And that is a big That is a big job. It'll keep you busy. It really will. My job was to ask about the community because they asked me to do that, I guess. They said 3 things that may be an issue to talk about, and the first one, what, 3? Again, there's a lot of things, but I broke it down to 3 things. Accountability, and we also called it authenticity. Are you being responsible for your actions and content? This is going to be kind of rhetorical, the things I'm going to ask you here, but you can share with me later on if you want. Accessibility. Are people of all walks able to participate in this? And then you may have to ask yourself why or why not. And then the third thing, adaptability. Are we aware of our culture changes in the recent years compared to how leather started, or kink started actually? If you want to look at all of the spectrum of kink and BDSM and leather, it has a very, very colorful history. We talked about the dyke history, the gay history is there, the straight history is there too. And it's very interesting how some of it is converged in the more recent years, and how some of the things that was considered the tradition have changed a little bit. Because some of it is not practical anymore, some of it doesn't fit our lifestyle. But let's go back to accountability. We are accountable to each other. We are especially accountable if we're a leader in our communities. We need to be sure that we are being our true self. It is something where, can you look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, I am being the real me at this moment. I'm showing people who my true colors are. That's where you become authentic, and that's also where, when you get to know each other, you keep each other accountable to things. It's very important in our community to do that. When it comes to accessibility, that takes on a whole bunch of side strings. Something as simple as physical disabilities. Can you get to a certain place and do that? We had a contest one time. I actually won a contest there, but the problem was some of the people that needed to go there was no elevator or ramp. They had to go up the stairs at this place. It's a historical building that they cannot install an elevator in because it's a historical building. So people who needed to go up and down the stairs had to make a choice of going up at once and staying there, okay? And that was a problem. But that's just the physical side. What about social accessibility? Why is it that some of our spaces make the rest of our letters in LGBTQIA+ uncomfortable, and that it's only about the G? And I'm saying that privileged as a cis male gay man who can sit literally in a place like this and feel comfortable. Adaptability, besides accessibility, you know, our play spaces, things like that. I love the fact that the Dyke Dungeon came into play. You know, that may not be where I'm at, but I'm going to absolutely support it and get as many people that can go to it to enjoy that. Okay? It is, you know, because the gay men have our play spaces too. We do. And I have no problem. That's why I loved AKW when the dungeon was open to literally everybody, no matter who you were. And I saw people getting along and doing all sorts of wonderful things. Some of it was like, ooh, this is something to study and learn about. I am a gay man, but some people accuse me of being pansexual because I do a lot of things that don't involve what's inside the jock or what's inside the panties. Flogging doesn't care what your gender is. Neither does pegging, for that matter. Neither does electro, okay? It doesn't matter. My sister and I taught a wonderful electro class, and she's out the crap out of me, and I was getting hard on. Okay, so it was like we had to stop for a moment. I had to turn my back because I didn't want to show my prized possession down there. It was fun, and the puppy was getting upset because he wanted to be the demo bottom, and I kind of took over. It's like, I want to be zapped. But this is the thing: there's very few things that actually have to deal with what you are actually identified with as a gender. Most of it on the pansexual scale says, you know, all these things are good. And that's where you can coexist for a lot of these things. So accessibility is very important. And you could also call that inclusivity. That's another way of calling it. And then adaptability. Are we aware of our culture changes in the recent years compared to how leather started? We just finished, some of us, doing a book and a book study. And I really recommend, guys, book studies and meeting with people to learn about some of our histories. It teaches us where we were, it teaches us where we're going so we don't repeat some mistakes. We have a lot of very strong traditions in a lot of our leather culture that have a founding in why it was. You have to remember that in the 70s and the 80s, and with the AIDS crisis, being in the leather community was very clandestine and very underground and you had to know somebody who vetted you to finally decide you could be in our community. And then going through the stages of, as a boy or a girl, and working your way through to finally maybe being a daddy or a master or a sir. And masters were very rare. They're still rare today. That's one thing that stayed the same. But a lot of the stuff that happened back then, if you didn't like what was going on there, you really didn't have many other options. Nowadays, you can get on FetLife or Facebook, see what things are going on, and click, I'm going to this. You decide you don't want to go to this dungeon, well, there's 2 other dungeons. That didn't always exist back then. Some places didn't have all this stuff. Some cities have bigger leather communities than others because their circumstances. Chicago's got one of the biggest ones around because in history, Illinois was the first ones to get rid of the sodomy laws. Why do you think IML is in Chicago? That's why. So, looking at the 2020s compared to people growing in the leather community in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there's a massive difference. Our internet lets us find accessibility to other things and find things. We talk on social media and we don't hide as much as we do. We now come out and we're proud, where we used to have to hide a lot of times. So a lot of those traditions, how do you carry those forward? Also understanding that there's a generational difference. People from my era that followed a lot of the old guard were baby boomers. I'm actually a baby boomer. I'm going to be 62 in December. So yeah, and I'm still alive right at the moment. So you don't find too many of us. Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, they may have a different perspective where they're not going to be able to follow some of that. I had one young man tell me he was overwhelmed by thinking what it would take to be somebody's boy. And I had to gently remind him, it's bit by bit. It's not something where you walk in, say I want to be a boy, and you better know it by the end of the day. This is not Miranda Priestley, okay? So those are the things I want to bring up. Those are the rhetorical things I want you to think about for yourself. If you'd like to have those conversations later on, that's what I'm here for. Okay.